So we did a vote. 18 people voted. 94% said yes, 6% said no. So we are covering the Krakoan era. Now, I'll say this. There are over 500 issues and 80 series in the Krakoan era. We are not covering all that, but we are going to hit the main parts. We're definitely going to hit the main parts. But it all starts off with Hox and Pox, House of X, and Powers of X. If you are not new to this, welcome back. Let's take a trip down memory lane. If you read the Krakoan era, but didn't read Hox and Pox, you're in for a treat. And if this is your first introduction to the Krakoan era, whew, buckle up your seatbelts. My name is Dorian. This is SCN Comics. We are starting our coverage of the Krakoan era with House of X, #1. So our legendary story starts off in the birthing chamber. Is that what they called it? I mean, that's where they come out the eggs, right? You would think they would call it a birthing chamber. Feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. And you got Professor Xavier walking around in his cerebral helmet as it looks like Scott and Jean are being birthed. He picks up Scott's head and he goes, "To me, my X-Men." Then on the next page, we go to 5 months ago on Krakoa, and we see Colossus picking a flower. 4 months ago, we see Storm dropping off a flower at Westchester, the mansion. 3 months ago, I don't know who this is, but they're dropping off a flower at the blue area of the moon. 2 months ago, we see Armor dropping off a flower on Mars. 1 month ago, we see Beast, I'm assuming it's Beast, drop off a flower at the Savage Land. 3 weeks ago, I'm assuming this is Kitty, because of her pet dragon, dropping off a flower in Washington, D.C. And 2 weeks ago, I'm assuming this is the Sephir Cuckoos, drops off a flower at the Jerusalem Habitat. So then we cut to now at the Jerusalem Habitat as limousines pull up and we see ambassadors from different countries come out. One guy goes, "Ambassador, you look tired. How was your flight?" He goes, "The flight was fine." That's not the reason why I'm tired. I'm tired because of what's going on right now with Professor Xavier telepathically talking to everybody and let us know exactly what his demands are. So then this other ambassador lady walks up and she goes, "Yeah, personally me, I sleep better when there's predictability. With all this unpredictability that's going on, it keeps you up at night." So another lady walks up and goes, "It's a designer drug thing, isn't it?" And she goes, "Yeah, no, I don't like it at all." So just in case you're wondering what drugs are they talking about, there's one ambassador that lays it all out. He goes, "A drug that expands human life 5 years, another one that prevents disease of the mind, and a third that is the most effective adaptive antibiotic the world's ever seen. I don't see a problem with this." Like, you can tell this dude is a big farmer boy because he is excited about this. So one ambassador goes, "It's not a gift if you got to pay for it." Boo. Come on now. Like, you got to pay for everything. Like, stop. Just stop. So one ambassador starts to put him in his place and goes, "Well, that's what's called leverage. God knows none of us has ever dared to do that before, right?" So the pharmaceutical guy puts the finishing touches on it. He goes, "Trade deals, treaties, the money and power of it all. These are complications you are all familiar with. What you should be concerned with is amnesty." So one ambassador goes, "You think so?" And ambassador goes, "I seem to remember something someone said once. Something about appearing to be one thing, but actually doing another." One ambassador goes, "I know you're not quoting Sun Tzu, are you?" Dude that wrote The Art of War. So the Chinese ambassador goes, "Why bother? It's not a war if they already won." So one ambassador goes, "So that's your position of the Chinese government?" And he goes, "I have orders to accept Xavier's deal." So 2 of the Sephir Cuckoos appears and pretty much welcome all the ambassadors into the habitat. So they're all talking and then they go, "Well, where's Xavier at?" All of a sudden all you hear is, "Charles won't be joining us today. He is otherwise engaged. I admit I am a poor substitute, but hopefully I'll manage." And they go, "Magneto?" Magneto goes, "Please, Ambassador, it's fine. Follow me, I'll give you the tour." So we might as well talk about the flowers of Krakoa. You got the human drug L. That's pretty much the one that gives humans an extra 5 years of life. Say what you want to about the Krakoan era. If that drug was real, people will be killing for it. Killing for it. Extra 5 years of life? All day. All day. You got the human drug I. That's the one that's the adaptive universal antibiotic. Pretty much can heal you from anything. They just pretty much took Wolverine's healing factor and just put it in pill form. So that's what I'm assuming anyway. And then you got the human drug M, that is the mind drug. That'll pretty much cure you from any kind of mental disease, which, considering my grandma had Alzheimer's and my dad had dementia, I know what's coming down the pike, so I would take this drug all day, any day of the week, twice on Sundays. But now for the mutants. Those flowers that everybody was dropping off, those are gateways. Pretty much, you take one flower, you put it wherever you want to. Its twin is on Krakoa, and it gives you an instant access to anywhere that flower is at. You got the habitats, which you see in Jerusalem. We're also going to see one in New York that's going to pop up pretty soon. And then you got the no places. That's pretty much where it'll take you right out of space and time. This is going to be very important way, way, way down the road. Way down the road. Actually, I take that back. We're going to see a no place in the Power of X. But, they do become important way down the road. So then we cut to Westchester, New York, and you have Jean, and she's dressed up in her old Marvel girl uniform, and she's taking some young mutants, and she's explaining how the growing gates work. How as long as you're a mutant, you can pass through the gates. If you're not a mutant, you could not, unless you're accompanied by a mutant. And even if you're accompanied by a mutant, you still have to have permission to be able to go onto the island. Now we cut to Cypher and Sage, and they're commanding the, Krakoan headquarters. And they're pretty much monitoring everybody who passes through the gates. So Jean and the green girl Fauna pass through the gates, and Jean's trying to explain to her, kind of how the rules are going to be working here on the island. And she goes, look, it's Professor Xavier, and he's with some hairy guy. And Jean goes, oh, yeah, well, why don't you go over and introduce yourself? And the hairy guy, his name is Logan. So there's already other kids jumping all over Wolverine. She runs over there. Professor Xavier looks over, sees Jean, and goes, welcome home, Jean. You're safe here. We all are. So now we cut to deep space. And I mean deep, because they're right next to the sun, where Orchis is already into their groove and already starting to build their space station. So the captain of the ship is Dr. Gregor's husband. He's pretty much letting them know that, hey, you guys need to test the air there before you guys take off your suits or anything like that. We need to see if it's inhabitable. And she doesn't listen and just takes off her helmet. And her husband goes, and that's why we don't have kids. So Dr. Gregor is pretty much laying out her plans of what they're going to be doing and how they're going to be doing it. And she's talking to Omega Sentinel. So then Omega Sentinel and Dr. Gregor are talking, and they're pretty much saying how the robots that built the station are now reassigned to go to Mercury to mine some metal there so that they can help out with whatever's going to be going on here on Earth. And then besides, if they need robots, that's exactly what that facility is for, to make robots. As we see, this station is right next to the sun, and it's around a big old head, which is a master mold or a mother mold. I don't know which one, but it's wonderful. So now this is how Orchis was created. 31% of it was made up of aim, 24% of it is made up of shield, 16% of it is made up of strike, 8% of it is made up of sword, 7% of it is made up of alpha flight, 5% of it is made up of hammer, another 5% is made up of armor, and 4% was made up of Hydra. But they act a lot like Hydra. I mean, a lot. So now, with a little hindsight, I can show you this list and tell you that the only two people you really need to worry about on this list is Dr. Gregor and Omega Sentinel. Like, everybody else is pretty much irrelevant. Like, I know they got Dr. DeVoe down as the dude in charge of Orchis. Trust me. What I say, 500 issues the Krakoan era was? Shoot, I covered at least a good 1/3 of the back end of the end of the Krakoan era. I probably count on one hand how many times I actually read a comic book with Dr. DeVoe in it. So yeah, trust me, Dr. Gregor, Omega Sentinel. So now we get some excitement. We're in damage control in a storage facility, and you got Mystique, Sabretooth, and Toad. When Magneto needs something done, he gonna turn to his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Sabretooth is doing his Sabretooth thing, killing all the guards. Well, maybe not all the guards are dead, but some of those dudes are dead. So Mystique's sitting there talking about Toad, how much longer is it gonna take? And Toad's sitting there with the laptop, and he's like, you want me to search a database of the smartest people in the world, make a copy of it, and get out of here like we would never hear? Like, come on, Mystique, have some limitations. Like, it's probably going to take as long as, okay, I'm done. So she's like, okay, let's get the hell out of here. So she shoots a big hole into the building. Like, how the hell is somebody not going to know they weren't there? So they're trying to get to Washington Square so they can get to the Krakoan gate. But then Sabretooth's like, hold on, wait a minute. I smell something. Incoming, and he gets hit with a fireball. Then we see is Johnny Storm and Ben Grimm with the Fantastic Four. So Sabretooth goes to Mystique and Toad's like, you guys get out of here, I'll handle this. And Ben Grimm knocks the bejesus out of Sabretooth. So what they were stealing were the blueprints to Saul's hammer. Now, that's something that Reed Richards and Tony Stark came up with during the incursions. Eventually we're going to cover that story, but we need to ease into that. We got this covered first. Now, why do the mutants need the blueprint to Saul's hammer? Guess we get to find out together. So the Stepford Cuckoos and Magneto are pretty much giving the tour of how the Krakoan gates work and how they had to label the gates so that nobody gets lost, because there's a lot of gates now. And they're like, well, what kind of language is that? And there's like, it's our own language. It's Krakoan. And they're like, well, we can't read that. And Magneto's like, because it's not for you guys. So as soon as a mutant comes to Krakoa, they are telepathically imprinted in their cerebral cortex the language of Krakoa. So the Chinese ambassador's like, you made your own language. Magneto's like, of course we did. He's like, you can't create a distinct culture without it. And make no mistakes, that's exactly what we're doing. So they start going to the gates and they start going to all these different places. And then one of the ambassadors goes, so when we're going to go to Krakoa? And Magneto's like, you're not. And Magneto starts to, flex a little bit. He goes, we are Homo superiors. Technically, we should inherit the whole Earth. But we're not going to. We're going to let you keep most of it. All we ask is that you stay off of our little island. So we go back to the Fantastic Four and the Brotherhood of Youth Mutants, pretty much going at it. Toad and Mystique are going through the gates. And Mystique's like, come on, Creed, let's go. He does a jump kick off the thing. He tries to go to the gate. And then he's in a force field because Reed and Susan Richards show up. But then somebody else also shows up through the gate. And it's Cyclops. These guys go way back. Like, Cyclops is like, hey, Ben, congratulations on the wedding. Mazel tov. And Ben's like, oh, thanks, Slim. He's like, of course. So everything else is going well. And Susan's like, yeah, the normal fireworks, Cyclops. And he goes, what would life be without a little bit of surprise? So then Reed goes, so? And he goes, yeah, well, I'm here to take Mr. Creed off your hands. Well, Johnny's like, we just caught him. And then Reed's like, why would we do that? And Scott's like, you're a smart man, Mr. Richards. You know what amnesty means. And Reed's like, Sabretooth has broken a number of laws. And I'm pretty sure that some of those guards back there are fatally wounded. So yeah, I don't think we're going to be just letting them go like that. So Cyclops is like, I know it's upsetting, but I'm afraid new beginnings demand wide bursts. So the Reed is like, yeah, I think we have a problem with that. So Cyclops is like, you know what? Fair enough. I can see you feel strongly about this, so I'll go ahead and I'll let you keep them. And we'll deal with this some other time, some other way. So Sabretooth in this little box goes, what? Are you kidding me, Summers? So then Susan's like, Cyclops, this amnesty and other things that Xavier is doing, like, what are you guys thinking? So then Cyclops goes, my family has spent their entire lives being hunted and hated. The world has told me that I am less than when I know I'm more. Did you honestly think that we was going to sit around and take it forever? So Susan's like, of course not. But so Cyclops like, it's really simple, Susan. I believe in what Charles Xavier is doing. And please greet your son for me and tell him when he's ready, his family of Krakoa will be waiting for him. So now this is the list of Omega level mutants. Now, some of these people are beyond Omega level, but yeah, this is the list. And even though like with Benedict Perry, they say unknown, he's going to show up. Same thing with David Holler, Legion, he's going to show up. Only one I don't think that ever shows up is Epsilon Mercator, which is crazy. That dude is ridiculously powerful. He's the only one I don't know that didn't show up at all. But I guess we're going to find out if he did, but I don't think he did. So then we go back to the Krakoan habitat in Jerusalem. And Magneto goes, so, what have we learned? And one of the ambassadors starts to talk, and Magneto cuts him off, just like, wasn't talking to you. And one of the Stepford Cuckoos starts to lay out how most of these people are ex-military, and all of them, every last one of them, is crooked and has an agenda. The ambassador from China is actually the head of the science department in China. The French ambassador is an actual ambassador, but he bought his way onto being an ambassador because he owns a private pharmaceutical company. That's why he was so interested in coming, because of the pharmaceutical aspect of it. The Russian ambassador is actually a Red Sky senior operative. The one ambassador that's sporting the Reed Richards is actually an agent of Strike. And the one ambassador who pretty much was spelling gloom and doom and didn't like what the hell was going on, he's an ex-SHIELD, ex-SWORD, Black Ops agent who is trained enough to still be blocking off some of the Stepford Cuckoo's mental probes. And he has a gun. So Magneto pretty much relieves him of that gun, takes it all apart, and picks him up in the air. He was like, I wasn't going to use it, it's just for my protection. And Magneto's like, of course. That's the way I always start. So Magneto goes, I like how you guys are wolves pretending to be sheep, but I learned hard lessons from your kind. And I know the truth. You're all wolves. So he pretty much starts to lay out exactly how things are going to work, but he ends it in one of the best ways I've ever heard in comics. He goes, you see, I know how you humans love your symbolisms, almost as much as you love your religions. So I want you, no. I need you to understand. You have new gods now. And that's how you start a new era with a bang.